Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, David. How are you?
Doing well. Enjoying the first day of summer.
First day of summer. We actually have a good first day of summer. We had, no spring, basically?
Pretty much.
But we have a nice summer start.
Pretty much. We went from snow to rain and cold,
Right.
and then suddenly to
hot
summer.
and humid. And all the kids are out of school, so in Wakefield, so please, as you're driving around, please be careful. Kids will be all over the place for the next 3 months or 2.5 months or whatever.
Absolutely. But the fact that we're now into summer, we're going to talk about a subject we've talked about a few times before, Lake Quannapowitt, which is such a fantastic asset to the town.
Right, it's time to go down and get our tags for 25 cents so we can swim in the lake. Oh, we don't do that. I forgot. Going back to my youth, yeah. The lake is a fantastic asset, and not only in its own state, but hopefully as a draw. Probably have 100,000 people a year that walk around that lake, both privately, recreationally, for charity events and what have you.
Road
not
races,
to mention
yeah.
road races, not to mention the 40 or 50,000 that are there for the 4th of July fireworks. So there's a lot of people that are brought to our lake and our common in that very special area, and we certainly struggle with how do we get people from there downtown to use our businesses, but that's a different show.
Right.
Right, but it is quite a
That might
quite
be
a
the
space.
next show.
That might be the next show, yes.
But, of course, the biggest issue has been, and we've talked about it before, the fact that the lake itself is in many respects a dying lake.
Yes.
It is not self-cleaning the way it used to. It has not been safe for swimming for 45 years.
Oh, geez, I'm not that old. I would say 42.
You
42
know,
years.
It's been a long time. There's still sailboating on the lake. There's still paddle boarding. There's
Right.
still kayaking.
Windsurfing.
Not so much anymore, amazingly. Haven't seen them a lot lately. And there's even a little fishing.
Yes.
I took a tour around the lake this morning on foot, did some photographs, and had a talk with 2 fishermen about the lake. And both of these fishermen are catch and release type fishermen, so they don't keep what they pull out. But they were talking about the perch, the carp, and the bass.
Oh, wow.
Perch and carp up near the head of the lake, and bass down in the cove.
And how big are the bass that they're catching? Did they let you know? Or was it
didn't
the fish that
indicate,
got away,
but,
right? They
but,
said it was that big.
the carp are running 16 inches in some
Wow.
cases
Cool.
in the lake,
Yeah.
which was kind of interesting to find out, somewhat hard to believe, but yeah, you never know with fishermen whether it's...
Exactly. The fish that
you
got
know,
away.
But, and there weren't any there to show off.
Yeah.
But let's go to some photos that I did this morning of what's happening with the lake. This is an outflow pipe down on Lower Common. And I'm not sure what is outflowing from that pipe. But, you know, in addition to some of the other things we'll see, let's go to the next one. Yet another outflow pipe. That, I assume, is storm drain?
I would assume so, too. Yep, from up there.
You know? Next one, please. Okay. This is some of the algae bloom and the pollen that's going on right now, which...
Algae and the algae blooms is not only a huge problem here in Wakefield. It is a huge problem, I would say nationwide, you know, with the problem with algae blooms. And what's happening with the lake is that because of years of probably over fertilizing and the phosphorus in that, and the lack of the circulation through the lake has created an atmosphere where you get these algae bursts, these algae blooms, and then that last photo is what shows it. They've done a great job in Wakefield about, particularly Dennis Fazio, our head of Forestry and Grounds, is that years ago he changed the entire fertilizing for what we use to, the non-phosphorus base.
Right.
The private sector has gone that way. They don't really make that anymore. I'm sure there is some phosphorus base in people's garages that they're still using,
Sure.
but you can't get that anymore. So that is going to help.
Right.
Those things will help. There'll be less of that runoff that adds to that item, that last picture you showed. But the other thing you touched on is the lack of circulation.
Right.
And you almost have to go back to the building, in some sense, to the building of Route 128, that some of those things were covered up. Some of those
Well, that
tributaries
and
were
the
coming
office
in.
park
And the office park.
and American Mutual, because
Yeah.
there were at one time multiple inlets coming in
Right.
the northwest corner. There's only one very depleted one left. And there were multiple outlets in the northeast corner running under Lowell Street
Exactly.
to the Saugus River, and there's only one left
Only
there
one
now.
left there. So I think that there is a committee that was appointed by the then Board of Selectmen a few years ago, now the Town Council, headed by Town Engineer Mike Collins, who probably knows more about the lake and its depths and all of the idiosyncrasies of it
Right.
than probably anybody does, about how do we look holistically to tackle this issue. I will tell you that it's a committee of people that have looked at a lot of different options, and we'll go over a few of them as we talk here. But one thing that keeps coming back to me is what you started, is the lack of circulation.
Right.
So I think that there are still some of these inlets that can be cleared out a little bit, and it may require a little bit of digging and dredging to lower them so
Right.
water will flow into them. The trick has always been with this is that will help flush the lake, is the quality of the water that will be coming in. Is that going to be better, worse, or equal?
Right.
So we'll be adding churning it up and flushing it is a good
Right.
thing. If we're flushing it with lower grade, lower quality water, it might not be such a good thing, right?
And we won't know until we do.
Well, they have been doing some testing of the
Yeah.
quality of the water around the lake,
Okay.
outside of that area that may
Right.
come in.
Right.
And the last conversation I had with a member of the Lake Quannapowitt committee was that, boy, that water quality around the lake outside of the lake has increased because, again, the lack of the phosphorus and what
Right.
have you, and a general feeling that we should be a little cleaner and better the environment
Right.
in Wakefield and outside. So if that water is of equal or better quality,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be a huge help. And
Sure.
a huge help at I'm not going to say it's not going to cost anything, because it is, but at certainly a substantially less cost than maybe some
Right.
of the other items would be. So that's one.
And a more natural
Exactly.
solution to the problem.
And it may take a little longer,
Yep.
but that flushing will go through, and that'll cause that circulation or what have you to go and help out through the lake. So that's one thing that is being looked at with an eye on the water quality.
Yep.
Another item that this group looked at, and I actually went and did a little field trip to Ipswich to see where they're called solar bees. And these are big, they almost look like big balls on the lake,
Right.
or Christmas ornaments almost, and that are solar powered, hence solar bees. And they do kind of gurgitate and
Right.
and
Well, the solar-powered pumps.
solar-powered pumps.
Yeah.
Great way to solar-powered pumps.
Yeah.
That in itself, though, you're still not flushing. You're still just moving around the
Right.
water, and maybe
Right.
you get that creates a level so that you have less of the effect of the phosphorus and less of the algae.
Right.
But that may or may not be temporary, may or may not work. I know that there seem to be some early success stories with solar bees. Now that some of the articles that have been brought to me and past my desk show a little bit of a less,
Like in Mashpee.
like in Mashpee.
Yeah.
Look good, maybe isn't working out as well.
Yeah.
I think there was solar bees were also used in a state to the south. I want to say South Carolina, but that's not what's important.
Yeah.
Same thing happened. There was this big expense,
Mhm.
and that didn't work. So we certainly don't want to spend a lot of money
Right.
on those things. Another option that was looked at by some, was looked at by the committee, is that is a chemical option.
Mm-hmm.
I will start right here. I am not a scientist. I took chemistry in high school and happily left all that stuff behind me after that. But I do remember back in the 70s where we did put chemicals in the lake.
Yes.
And I believe the chemical was arsenic.
Yes.
I recall.
Yes.
to get rid of
When
the
there
leak.
was still swimming
When
in
it was
the
still
lake.
swimming in the lake, and
Yeah.
that was the preferred option at the time. I don't think that ended up being such a good thing in the long run. So I think that it's a very complicated issue that needs to be studied and is being studied. And but I keep coming back to what exactly you said in the beginning. We need more flow. We need
Right.
more of that.
We need flow
Changing.
in and
In
flow
and
out.
changing the water.
Yeah.
And what have you. So that, to me, would seem to be, as long as the quality of the water is okay coming
Right.
in, can't be worse.
Right.
That seems to me to be a preferable option in my mind,
Yeah.
being a non-scientist. But this is something that will be coming to a head, and at the head of the lake, I think in the short-term future, to decide how we're going to handle this.
Yeah. Because it seems like each year the quality of the water is getting worse and
Yeah,
worse
it goes
and worse.
through cycles. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some times that are good, but you get high area of high humid days with a lot of lack of air, and then that seems to you
Right.
get algae bloom. What have you.
Well, last year was the first year I actually had to wash down the bottom of the
Right.
kayak each time I took it out of the lake because
yeah.
of all of the growth. Let's go back to the next photo if we could, please. We have a number of outflows that
Yeah.
seem to be stagnant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next photo, please. That one's down at Lower Common.
Yeah.
Next one. Okay, this is the plant growth around the edge of the lake, which has bloomed and blossomed to a great degree over the last few decades. Not so much here at the corner by Lower Common, but up toward the head of the lake, it's become really egregious. Let's go to the next one, please. And this is the point I wanted to make. This is the former American Mutual property,
Yes.
which is owned by a realty company now and managed by a realty company. And you see how beautiful they keep the grounds
Yep.
around the building. Let's go to the next one. But then you have this on the other side looking into the lake. All of that, when American Mutual was there, was open to the water.
You could slide your kayak right over there.
You could slide your
Yep.
kayak over there. You see they have a nice picnic table here, and what do you see?
Grass,
Weeds,
weeds, and whatever.
Junk trees. Next one, please. And here they did a beautiful patio behind
on
the
the other
building.
side of the path. On the building side of the path.
On the building side of the path, and no lake view.
Yeah.
So that brings up another issue. Besides cleaning up the water itself, is there any way that the town can compel property owners to clean up the lake edge of vegetation and dead trees? There were a lot of
Right.
fallen and dead trees that have been there for a while, not just from this winter.
questioning on where the ownership is too. Is there a town ownership around there? I don't know.
Right.
So we'd have to.
I know right now we did vote a town right of way on the
path, yeah.
path, but that's it.
Well, I will tell you that on the vegetation around the lake, there are a couple of different philosophies on that.
Mm-hmm.
It does provide shelter for a lot of wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be disturbing that. There may be some conservation issues as well. So that is something that we will have to look at. I do think that when you go a little further up there, when you go towards the, call it the Old Lord Wakefield Hotel, there are some more expansive open views of the lake, which I think would be great.
A few.
A few.
A few.
A few in that
There
area,
is a lot of vegetation up there, but
I
there are
think,
gaps
yeah,
here
I
and
think,
there.
Yeah, that is something that
You
will
know.
have to be looked at, but there are those other components,
Yeah.
what have you.
Well, the other, let's go back to the next photo if we can. This is drainage from the parking lot, Lord
Oh,
Wakefield
yeah,
and
well,
Lakeside
yeah.
into the lake. that's uncontrolled and
And how is that separated?
unregulated.
And is there, are there filtration items that we can use? I read an article about these filtration, really bags that they
Yeah.
put in that
Yeah,
separate some of the oils and the,
which is kind of interesting, a
Phosphorus, yeah.
passive technology.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah.
You know, no
Yeah.
moving parts.
Next one, please. I'm not sure what this outflow is. This is over at the other end of the property, between that and the houses.
And at times there is, I think there's a sand,
It's stagnant, that's for sure.
yeah. At times that will flow through and flow into the lake.
Yeah.
There is some sort of a sand filtration in there when the boards go out. So it's another science too, keeping that lake higher. I mean, I think we want to keep it a little bit higher
Right,
when we can because that does help with the boating and what have you.
right. Next one, please. Okay, that's another view
Yeah.
of that outflow coming from under North Avenue. Next, yeah. And this is the other problem, of course, are the lily pads.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just choking, particularly the west side of the lake from the former American Mutual property right down to the cove.
Mm.
Next one, please. And of course,
boat
this
ramp.
is the boat ramp, and you can see the pollen
see
and
the
algae
algae,
right
yeah.
there. So we do have a couple of maps. Let's put up the map with some writing on the side, if you would, please. This is one of the ones that you provided. And that's the other thing I don't think a lot of people, especially newcomers to Wakefield, appreciate is how shallow this lake
Yes,
is.
which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's almost like a puddle.
It's
it
almost like
doesn't-
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks to the glaciers in the last
Right.
ice age. You know, there are newcomers who look at the racing buoys for the Quannapowitt Yacht
Yeah.
Club, and there's one out from Cemetery Point with no number on it. And that buoy says, don't go between that and the land.
Right.
Under
Right.
any
Under any
circumstances.
Yeah, because it's very, very shallow.
Very shallow, you'll rip a centerboard off
Yeah.
a boat that way.
Although it isn't as shallow as I really thought. And when they did I thought it was a little bit more shallow when they did these maps. It did
Yeah.
show there were some more 8-foot areas than I thought there were, 6 to 8 foot areas. So
Right.
that's helpful because that'll help with flow when you do that.
But that also,
and also doesn't let the
shows
sunshine get to the
that,
bottom.
that the lake itself has been filling in.
Yes.
Because it wasn't that long ago when it was more 11 feet deep.
Yes, and that's what we were always told growing up.
Right,
It was
because
11 feet deep.
they used to run 110s, which were
Right.
keel boats, racing at Quannapowitt Yacht Club, which required that
Yeah.
kind of depth
to go
because
through.
they had
Yeah.
a fixed keel as opposed to a centerboard.
So I guess the other item to look at besides limiting the phosphorus, increasing the flow, increasing the movement, is probably some sort of a dredging operation to get rid of some of that muck and mire there at the bottom.
That's accumulated.
That's accumulated over the years to kind of help, it would alleviate the fact that your sunshine won't get to the bottom.
Right.
So you can't have that adding to that growth and what have you.
Well, you know, historically, people don't realize that 100 years ago or so, they used to run a steamboat around the
Steamboat.
lake.
Had ice houses too.
We had ice
Sold ice,
houses.
yeah.
Yep, we sold ice.
Yeah.
Well, that's when the lake would freeze completely
Right.
in the winter, which we haven't seen maybe more than once or twice in the last 40 years.
I can recall it growing up a couple of times, but not really freezing completely. But
I
not,
can
not as
recall
solid
ice
as we'd
boats
like.
on the lake.
Yeah, we still see them, but we still see them in an area, and then there's still open water over here. It's kind of surreal
Right.
to watch them. So
It's a little different.
Yeah.
A little different. So where are we with finding the solution as a town?
well, we did want to make sure that we took a very careful study of this because we really have one shot to get it right, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Particularly where, if one of the options is to add any sort of a chemical to the lake, I think that's something is there probably isn't a do-over on that one,
Right.
It's in there and it's not. So I do know that we have engaged a consultant an expert in this area to kind of help out. I know they've had some meetings with this gentleman. I don't know if he's coming out now or later, now or shortly in the near future, to talk about this, to go through it. And then at some point, there will be, and whether that's 3 months, 6 months, 2 months, but I think we're getting to the end of this process. There will be a presentation to the town council and a recommended course of action. I think, frankly, it's going to be some smatterings from a lot of these, opening up some of the tributaries coming in and going out for the flushing, assuming that the water coming in is equal or better, and I think that seems to be the trend anyway. Probably dredging, because you do want to get more to come through there, and those are two kind of lower cost items too that will help that, because let's face it, if we can get the flushing through there, and what have you, it might take a few years, it might take a generation to bring that lake back to where it was when we remember in our but that's the long-term solution. So that group, under the very capable hands of Mike Collins, is moving that forward, and they have actually taken a good approach, and there are scientists on it, there are people from the Friends of the Lake on it, there's, I'll call them lay people for lack of a better term, on it, engineering people on it, Conservation Commission people on it, to look at that whole thing and then bring something forward. That'll be quite an interesting presentation, I think.
Now, is this something we can look forward to in an upcoming town meeting?
And ultimately, depending upon the cost factor, there is going to be a funding, necessity here. Whether it's as simple as the cost of dredging the lake, that's either going to be in a budget or in an article. Maybe opening up some of the tributaries is something that we could do in our normal DPW work, but even that is going to add to the budget. That's a big job. That's not a simple issue. Looking at some of the filtration of these tributaries coming in, are we going to have to get a different kind of filter or something like that? Again, there's budgetary components to this that will have to go for funding, and that step is, through the department head, through the town council, presented to the finance committee, and presented to town meeting. So there's a lot of steps to go through and a lot of room for public input here as well. But it is the direction that I think we're going into.
And it would be a tragic loss not to do something with that lake.
No, exactly. But I just think I think it was the feeling on the town council, feeling by everybody involved, that we really need to make sure we don't do a quick hit on this that could cause, an issue that would take generations to take care of.
Right. Because we're already dealing with that now.
Right.
You know, and in a lot of ways, it's too bad we don't have the beaches that we used to have at Lower Common and at Colonel Conley.
Well, that'll be the next thing. I tell you, I have one thing that I've been interested in looking at is in Arlington. They have a pond, and I don't think it's Spy Pond. I think maybe it is. It's Spy Pond or a different pond, where they actually have a public beach that they actually do some filtration and kind of berm that area off. And our rec director, Dan McGrath, used to be in Arlington, so he keeps saying that we've got to go and I keep saying, you got to take me to take a look at this. I'd like to see how it actually works, to see, is this something that maybe we could be looking at down the road? Because there have been selectmen over the years and townspeople that would love to bring back a beach that could be usable.
Right.
I mean, it's not ever going to be Wingasheek Beach or Long Beach, but
it wasn't then.
It wasn't then. It could be a nice place for families and for, to take and cool off in water that's been maybe filtered a little bit, if that's okay, and have a little, there's some nice parks there. So it is something that would just give a little bit more recreational use to our people.
Like on July 4th, when people are waiting for the fireworks, they can enjoy
Go take a swim.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All 40,000 people of them.
You know,
We all come in, the water will rise. If we all go in there, maybe that'll help. We'll hit a higher level there.
you know, and you know, of course, the big success has been the kayak rental there.
Yes, yeah.
It's now in
That's-
its, what, 6th year?
6 years and at least 6 years, maybe longer. And the paddleboarding, and you see a lot more people doing that. And again, extending that to where there's been a greater synergy with the Chamber of Commerce that
Right.
you know, go downtown and get an ice cream at Cravings or what have you, and trying to, you know, use that as part of the economic engine. And that's a nice low impact,
Right.
you know, recreational activity that's really kind of
Well, and that
Fun.
might be just what we need to talk about in August.
is the low impact.
Is the downtown and
Yeah.
how we can.
how we can do that, because it's still something that we need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially with the rise in people going to shops and things in Greenwood,
Yes.
which even now the Curly building is being spruced up a little bit.
I think it's great. I think it's showing that retail is hard.
Yep.
And I get that. And, you know, a lot of people want to sit at their kitchen table and order something online, and maybe they're not going to go out and buy a book, or they're not going to buy, you know, clothes or what have you.
Right.
But they are going to go out for an experience, and there are certain niche companies that can do that. And if you couple that together with, you know, a cup of coffee, a croissant, what have you, and then the rest of an experience and maybe some entertainment,
Right.
that's what we're looking at. And not just we're looking at it. I think that everybody looking for downtown, you know, vibrancy is what you're doing. And it's also the camaraderie.
Yeah.
People want to, you know, we're still a social animal that wants to have camaraderie. So the lake, you know, using that, if that's more than that than coming down and using the downtown, that is what we're trying to do. That's part of the goal.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, we're taping this on June 20th. So
Yes.
one thing I do want to mention, this is going to be out of date in less than a week, but next Tuesday, June 26th, we have a special election, and I hope everyone will turn out to participate in it. But more to the point, this is the first time that everyone in the town goes to one location, the Galvin.
The Galvin. First time at the Galvin. We did have a special election a few years ago on the building of the Galvin.
Yep.
We had that at the high school
Field house.
Field house.
Yep.
But this is you're absolutely right. This is the first of the change that's been voted to have the elections at the Galvin, a centralized polling place, for a number of reasons. On a bus line.
Yep.
All the polling places aren't. There is certainly ample parking there.
Mm-hmm.
There is, if anything were to happen on of an electrical matter, what have
Right.
you, there is a generator that could be
Right.
used. Much easier for security reasons,
Mhm.
having one place. Much easier if there is any question for the voter about where you're voting. We do
Mhm.
still have some people that go to the wrong precinct,
Right.
and if it's the wrong precinct across town,
Right.
that could be a little bit of a hike.
Instead of
so-
across the room.
Instead of across the
Yeah.
room. Well, you're in precinct 3. You just
Right.
walk over there. I think it will be. I think it's going to be run very well. There'll be more assistance for the handicapped. We'll have our IT people
Right.
there on site in case anything happens, and invariably it does. You know,
Right.
machine, you know, jams or what have you. That would happen no
Mhm.
matter where. And it's one location, and I
Right.
think it's easier for people to find one location, particularly newcomers to Wakefield, that might not know where some of
Right.
the others are. So I think it's going to be a great success. I have
Mhm.
great confidence in the town clerk's office, our town
Mhm.
clerk Betsy Sharon and her capable staff. And, you know, we do have an election on the Tuesday the 26th, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and you just have to go to the junior high. School is not in session. School
Right.
will not be in session for the election, so there won't be that
Conflict.
That conflict.
Sure.
However, there are other towns that have elections in schools that, with the exception of presidential, still have the elections on when the school is in session.
Yeah.
We have decided that that's not the optimum. So
Excellent. So please try it out. Let us know what you think. We're going to take July off, so
Yes.
we'll be back in August. Thank you for joining us. See you in August.
thank you.